Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the roadmap for 2025. All the new future content and more specifically game mechanics that will be changed in the new year. The Waterline is that vehicle for wargaming. And there's a lot here. They've been cooking, perhaps burnt a few dishes, we'll see. But I'm excited to take a look at this today. There's a lot of new dramatic changes to the game that you really do need to know about in this Waterline. So to start with, we have to say that this is all work in progress, of course, and Wargaming has the potential to change anything that they say here. Their goals for this year, as stated by them, are to add new types of mechanics and ships, as well as provide more ways to play the ships you already have. Work on evolving PvP aspects of World of Warships and expand PvE content. Also to put more focus on historical and Navy-based content and implement changes to the aircraft carrier and AA mechanics. It's finally happening. Maybe. And the last little bit of context here is a new approach, which is hilarious. Once we've read through all of this, it is shocking, I suppose. Over the years, we've added numerous mechanics to diversify gameplay, but this has made the game increasingly complex, challenging both new and experienced players. We plan to be more selective with new ships and mechanics, aiming to avoid making the game harder. The idea is to introduce time-limited content that will evolve over several updates before being removed. This allows us to rotate mechanics and remove those that don't pass the test of time. If any prove popular, we may bring them back. These additions will complement, not detract from, the core gameplay, offering an extra layer of quality content. So already a bit of a contradiction there, don't you think? The game is too complicated because we've added numerous mechanics. And here's a bunch of more mechanics that will be rotating in and out of the game. Yes, it gets better though. This first wave of time-limited content will arrive update 14.2. So next update, we're just getting 14.1, I believe, as you're watching this video on Wednesday, at least on North America. And it'll go all the way to 14.7. So quite a long time. The first one is classified documents. So much like in the D-Day operations, it's going to enhance your ship. And that's going to be in random battles now. Yikes, that is going to be very interesting to deal with, I suppose. It'll also be added back into clan battles. So for you competitive game mode enjoyers, I apologize. I know this is the opposite of what you're looking for, but Wargaming is just going to send it. You'll at least immediately have access to the full list of documents, so it's not like people will be further ahead than you and have a tangible advantage over you when it comes to these documents. Now, not to be too glass half empty here, but let's be honest, that's probably coming later. In random battles, these classified documents can be equipped at the start of the battle, and they provide bonuses against specific ships, allowing you to target and weaken particular threats. Now, what do you think is going to happen if we have a lot of people running matchmaking monitor so they know who the best players on the enemy team are going to be? Well, I think you can understand that those players are probably going to be the target for these classified documents. Now, this is a very niche problem that really it's just streamers, YouTubers, that kind of thing. But I love that people say hi to me in game. You've probably noticed that in games, right? I really do enjoy that part of the battle, at least at the start there. Saying hi to everyone is really cool. It's nice to be recognized like that. But what happens if you're on the enemy team and you see me? You'll probably send your classified documents to my ship to nerf me in particular. And I get it, but also at the same time, that's gonna suck for me to play against. And I don't think that's just gonna impact people who make content on this game. I think it's gonna be anybody with an above average win rate. If you are in enough games, you're going to be, if you're an above average player, let's say 55% and above, somewhere around there, you will inevitably be one of the better players in your match at some point. And then you'll be the target of these documents. I'm very, very worried about what this is going to look like. And as we can see here in random battles, you actually get 3 options to target. And if we scroll over to, this is operations now, so a little bit different, but you're gonna see that there's multiple classified documents. So you can target players in particular, as well as different mechanics potentially. There's a lot of room here for Wargaming to craft interesting mechanics to add to the game. However, if we filter that through the context of new and experienced players being challenged by the increased complexity and that they want to curb that and make the game more approachable, perhaps this is not in that interest. In fact, I'd argue they're doing the exact opposite, but that is just my opinion. Operations with flagships is coming back, so if you're interested in PvE content and you've been enjoying what Wargaming's been added through last year's D-Day and Star Trek events, I think you're going to be eating pretty good this year. The content Wargaming has been doing for PvE has been ramping up in the past, and a dedicated focus on it over the next year. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it, and perhaps if you haven't tried it out and don't play the PvE all that much, and you find the upcoming changes to random battles frustrating to deal with, it might be something really interesting to look in. Get a group of friends, go into some of these operations, and I think there's a lot of fun to be had here. Back to some disappointment though, and a increase in complexity that is going to make things very challenging for players to understand. Experimental chips that will be rotating in and out of the game with dramatically different characteristics to the standard ships we are used to. Experimental ships will be available until the end of update 14.6, and these ships have very different mechanics to the standard ship. Specifically, they have to do with their HP. They are gaining massive bonuses when they are on lower HP, not only to their damage output, their DPM, but also to things like accuracy. They also have special ammo types. The Oregon, for example, was being tested with special AP ammo. And I don't know if that's quite like the gold ammo that Wargaming has in their tanks game. I don't actually play tanks, so I don't really know that. It's not a too far stretch to say that that is getting close. And if it has improved characteristics, it's limited. Who knows where we're going, but these are dramatically different ships. And if we're rotating ships and mechanics in and out of the game on a regular basis, I think the average player is going to have a much more difficult time understanding what's going on, let alone grinding to actually get these ships that have been killing them in their games. And then what if the ship disappears right after they've finally spent enough time to grind for it? I see a very difficult future for those who do not consistently regularly play the game every day. You can unlock these ships using credits and special currency earned through dedicated missions. Progressing in this event will reward you with customization and commemorative items. More information available later. And as we can see here, Wargaming has blurred out anything to do with the currency or the experience required to actually unlock these ships. Which does make sense, okay? Just to not be too hard on Wargaming, it makes sense. This is all in testing still, so I'm sure there's some fine-tuning being done to how you actually receive these ships. But at the same time, we do have a history of Wargaming adding these types of things into the game with monstrous upfront costs and grinding expectations. Looking at the original Dockyard, we saw Puerto Rico, right? That was a great example where they eventually backtracked, but is still a rather time-sensitive event that forces you to play quite a lot. The most recent one with Njord had a 2-week mission for 99,000 base XP. Doable if you play 2 hours a day for 2 weeks straight or so, something like that. That's a lot of playtime still. We'll see how this goes, but I gotta say, I am nervous. I'm very worried about the future direction of this game. Fortunately, that is going to be the end of the temporary content for now. We get to look at some standard stuff coming to the game. A new tech tree, for example. Unfortunately, this one looks to be starting at tier 7, so not a full tech tree line, but it's a new set of American destroyers. Finally, it's been so long since we've had a new line of American DDs. Really, it's just the gearing, right? That whole line from the original game back in 2015. So it should be interesting to take a look at those in the future. They seem to be very low caliber guns. I think Malta was saying like 76 millimeter guns, something like that. It'll be interesting to take a look at. Another new line, and Destroyer enjoyers should be keeping an eye out for those. And finally, we're getting the changes to aircraft carriers and AA this year. Surely it will happen this year, right? And not slip to next year or the year after. We'll see. It does bear some mentioning that they have changed some things since the last test, which had quite a few issues in my opinion. But let's take a look. Recon mode, which allows you to descend and spot enemies, is going to be simpler and more immersive. Not sure what that means, but it's going to be simpler and more immersive, apparently. Defensive AA will no longer prevent planes from spotting, which is a direct nerf to surface ships, unfortunately. Yes, it was a complicated mechanic, but it did result in counterplay on the part of the surface ship player, where if you were good at timing your defensive fire, you could blind the carrier and prevent them from spotting you entirely when they were dropping you. A very interesting mechanic that I found to be, yes, complicated, but one that people could learn how to use. And it was a bit skill-based in your timing of it, which was sorely needed when it comes to the carrier interaction with surface ships. One of my biggest complaints is the lack of interaction I have to the carrier planes. It feels like a bit of an NPC moment where the carrier gets to come over and strike me, and I'm just forced to dodge, I guess. My hand's tied behind the back. I'm like a fish in a barrel, right? Getting shot at. Not very fun in a PvP game where hopefully the goal is PvP interactions that are somewhat balanced, where each player has opportunity to interact with one another. And yes, one player may have an advantage, but that doesn't mean that they automatically win the engagement. Party sector will now cover 360 degrees around the ship and buff AA damage. So no longer is it on only one side, it's back to what it was a while ago, where you would sector your AA and it would just buff the AA all around you. So who knows how that's gonna go, but light on details here, I guess. We'll see more with the carrier rework once that comes a little bit closer. A new AA consumable is in the works, with details to be revealed later. That to me sounds a lot like the nerfing of Hydro, just to add a hydrophone to a very small selection of ships to help deal with submarines. Perhaps defensive fire is going to get nerfed down, and this new AA consumable will only be available on a very few select ships to counter carriers. Perhaps that's too much speculation for you, but there's a bit of a history here of Wargaming doing these things, and well, can you blame me? Can you blame me? It's been 10 years, man. It will be clearer which planes are dangerous and which are not. UI improvements, always good. The speedometer will also return, so I guess carriers can see how fast or slow they are going. The aircraft carriers will still be able to use their secondaries as main guns when not controlling aircraft, so be careful when you're that destroyer pushing up on some of these aircraft carriers, as some of them have pretty insane secondaries as far as DPM goes. It's going to be scary to deal with. And most concerningly, some commander skills for aircraft carriers will be reworked. We're considering a mechanic that provides a small chance to dodge AA fire, allowing you to deal some damage even against strong defenses. AA bubbles will also receive improvements. Very concerning line, and I had a few questions about this Waterline, but one of them in particular was, is CV dodging AA mechanic designed to allow CVs to strike into clumps of ships? And the answer I got was unfortunate, shall we say. This is one of the cases when it can be useful. In general, we want to give a very small chance for CVs to deal at least some damage, even in worst case scenarios. We hope to avoid situations when CVs can't do anything. For example, if the enemy team is keeping things close and you're in a CV that's 2 tiers below them. But it's important to emphasize that this doesn't mean CVs can just ignore ships with strong AA or clumped up ships with strong AA. That is a very, very concerning statement, in my opinion. Specifically, we hope to avoid situations when CVs can't do anything. In my opinion, there is never a situation where a carrier can't do anything thanks to how powerful spotting is in this game. But perhaps Wargaming disagrees with that. But spotting, to me, is very powerful. In fact, even if carriers didn't do damage, I think a lot of the spotting mechanics that we currently have would make them kind of overpowered in the way the game is designed now. To be fair, these changes are intended to be implemented with the rework, which is changing some crucial elements to carrier spotting. You have to directly go into the recon mode or an attack mode to spot. So while you're traveling across the map, you won't just happen to spot people. So that is a very nice change for surface ships. Additionally, aircraft fighters and patrol fighters will no longer be able to spot ships. That's also a really massive improvement for surface ships. I do need to be fair here. But adding in something that counters the only real defense a surface ship has against a carrier, being to clump up and maximize our AA as much as we can, seems a little bit sad to me as a surface ship player who feels like there are plenty of times where there is nothing I can do as a surface ship player against these carriers. And the one thing I can do, which is clump up at the back of the map as a team against the carrier to avoid them striking me, is the scenario that Wargaming wants to deal with and help carriers with. That is very, very disappointing. Onwards to the respawn event. Perhaps an interesting concept here where after you've been sunk, you'll get to respawn after a time in the battle. This won't be in random battles, fortunately, in its own game mode. But we know how Wargaming likes to test these things, right? You can probably expect that to come later on if it is successful. There's also going to be a convoy operation crossover event, so merging those two game modes could be interesting to take a look at in update 14.4 if you've enjoyed some of those PvE engagements. Now we also get mastery badges and marks of excellence. For those of you who have played World of Tanks, I'm sure need no introduction to this. Myself, who hasn't really played that game, I don't really know exactly how these things are going to work or if the Wargaming team here on World of Warships is going to implement them in a similar way. To earn mastery badges, you'll need to achieve more base XP in a single random battle than the average XP of other players in the same ship within a set period. And marks of excellence are earned by consistently achieving exceptional results in the same ship across multiple battles. Now, we did get a bit of clarification here. I'm not sure if it's enough for those of you that understand the tanks version, but here's what they had to say. There are 3 levels of Mark of Excellence. Each mark is awarded for reaching a milestone based on the average base XP of all players using that specific ship over a certain period. If the player's performance falls within the 65th, 85th, or 95th percentile, they will receive the corresponding mark. So we'll see how that goes once it's implemented in game, and how that will be displayed in game, I'm not sure. But I do think it's an interesting way to add a little bit of extra incentive for those who've been playing a long time into random battles. Of course, they want to add more customizations, so destruction of X, I guess, and they will be adding more of them. Pretty light on details here. The event pass is getting a major overhaul this year. The focus will shift to a medium long-term goal, with the event pass lasting 2 to 3 updates and being more accessible for casual players. This I'm very happy to see. I'm a little saddened that it's only for the event pass, but overall very happy to see this. This is a walking back of FOMO mechanics. Events where it's time limited your engagement with it, and perhaps you're incentivized to spend early to get a small discount, and then at the end when it abruptly ends on you, perhaps you haven't managed to finish it and now you've got a sunk cost fallacy to deal with. I hope Wargaming trends towards more events looking like this, and a good start here is seen with this event pass change coming in 2025. Historical content will be more of a focus as well, given that Battle of Java Sea and Battle of Leyte Gulf events were so popular and well received. So I believe that means we're going to have a little bit more historical content in our events as well, which is cool. There's also going to be 2 dockyards featuring historical ships. The new German Tier 9 cruiser, which is a buffed up hipper by the looks of things with some special AP. Very excited to take a look at that one. As well as some dockyard ships returning. Yes, Provincian as well as ZF6 later on. Who knows how they're going to return, but hey, nice to see them coming back for those that missed them. You see, FOMO events, perhaps walking things back a little bit. That's what I like to see. And it looks like they're focusing more on historical events, not some of the other collaborations they've done in the past with other games or content creators. And now we're right at the end. The last couple future plans as a footnote. We would like new maps. Yes, Wargaming. Yes, new maps. But that is on our to-do list for the end of 2025 or early 2026. Oh boy. Want to rebalance some high-tier maps first. So perhaps we're getting some rebalanced maps. That would be nice, as well as a new map. It's been a very long time, let's be honest. They're also considering introducing operations for low-tier ships as a tutorial, which I think would be great for helping new players get into this game, especially because there's very little population down below Tier 5. There's some protected matchmaker too, but I've tried to go back down and play some of those lower-tier ships. The ship request on Mikasa comes to mind, where I quite literally only played against bots, maybe one other player. So it'd be nice for newer players to get introduced to the game without just the co-op bots, which are terrible. Terrible. They teach you terrible mechanics to learn how to play this game. So hopefully those operations are done well. Some quality life balance for lower tier ships to reflect their respective branches better, perhaps. Some mid-tier healing for cruisers, huh? I doubt that, let's be honest, but maybe. I would love to see that, to be honest with you. They're also looking to implement brawls with different modifiers to affect ship parameters, rather than just restricting by tier and ship type. I think that'll be interesting to take a look at. Glad those are in alternate game modes, although wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this stuff comes to randoms anyway, much like those Oregon-style ships that we were seeing tested and potentially only used in specific events. Now they're going to be in random battles for 6 months or so at a time. So for now, that is the update, and we gotta go back, and I gotta ask you the question now. Over the years, we've added numerous mechanics to diversify gameplay, but this has made the game increasingly complex, challenging both new and experienced players. Does this update here, this Waterline, this roadmap to 2025, sound like it's addressing and helping with that problem, or just accelerating and making that worse? I'm sure you can probably already tell what I think, but I think this is making the problem much worse. And while I have some hope for the future of this game still, especially given some of these changes to the battle pass, making it a little bit less FOMO, we do have to talk about this Inchin Wishing Wharf, or perhaps just straight up casino event. This is just straight up gambling here. I really did not think it would be this bad, I'll be honest with you guys, when I was making that original Inchin video. There's a good reason, I think, why they did not give us the full information as to what is going on here in this event, and that's very disappointing to see, of course. I figured that if you already had these ships, like I have quite a few of them here, I guess I'm missing just the Irian here, but if you had these ships, they would be removed from the pool. So you would get a drop for a supreme reward, and you would only get that gambling chance, or the chance to get one of the ships you don't have. But no, that is not how it works. I already have a lot of these ships, but look it. If I was to get Sun Yat-sen again, or Fen Yang, I would get lunar tokens in compensation. So even though I already have the ship, it's not like they would just give me the ship I don't have. I would need to get this pittance of compensation here, this lunar tokens, to go do a couple more rerolls. It's an absolutely shocking level of gambling here that they are adding in here. And you're not even benefiting, not much, for already having those ships. So essentially, you have to own and earn these ships 2 times to even have them removed from the reward pool here. And I'm going to borrow some math done here by No-Nos over on Reddit here, done a nice breakdown for us. If you are the most unlucky player who also does not have any of those ships in the pool, you would have to get each one twice. And if you're really unlucky, you would have Inchin at the very end. Let's say that's the one you want. You would need to roll through down to the pity timer of 50 rolls before you're guaranteed a ship drop. You'd have to do that 650 rolls. You would need 6 of those duplicate, which is just an absurd number of rerolls, to the point where, is this pity timer, this guaranteed reward, any different from just a pure random chance slot machine at this point? If you put the guaranteed reward of the ship, the new ship you want out of this event, potentially so far away from players, does it even matter? I don't think so. To me, that just crosses the line directly over into slot machine gambling. And if we go look in the dev blog for update 14.2 coming up, there's another Wishing Wharf coming up right after this Inchin one goes away, because that one extends through into update 14.1. It seems the gambling is very addictive. Who could have thought that? And Wargaming is hooked on it as far as a monetization method. So that's gonna about do it for this roadmap into 2025. Rather light on details, and the details we do get are very concerning in my opinion for the future of this game. But you'll have to let me know what you think in the comments down below. I feel as though I've ranted a little too hard in this video. I really wanted to just state what was coming, but it's hard for me to hide the fact that this is one of the most disappointing waterlines that I've ever seen. Now, I think short term, there's going to be some benefits for me personally. This is very selfish, of course, okay? This is not at all in the best interest of the future of this game, I don't think. But if we're massively ramping up the complexity of the game, then who's going to describe that complexity to people? Perhaps a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer or someone posting on Reddit or somebody running a blog. Someone like that could be explaining those mechanics. So I think people who are creating content for the game will see a bump in the number of people coming to look at their content, looking for some clarification on these crazy new mechanics, especially as they want to rotate mechanics in and out. So there's going to be some dynamics there of how these mechanics impact the game and how they're going to impact the game once they're removed and the new ones come in. So I think selfishly, that's pretty cool, because I mean, I'll get an uptick in viewers. But I don't really feel like I need that, to be honest with you. I'd rather just the game be in a better state for everyone to play. Oh, man. Well, I guess we'll see. 2025, everybody, buckle up. And of course, I have to say thank you very much for watching this video all the way to the end. A lot of detail here, lots of new things to cover. I know, bit of a drier video, a little less focused on the gameplay and that. So we'll get back into games, and I will try not to focus too hard on the future and the negative outlook we have here, as there is still a lot of fun to be had in World of Warships, and I think there's a lot of interesting, fun content coming up too. But I do want to make these videos every once in a while to critique and explain and talk about why I'm so disappointed in Wargaming. I don't think they're necessarily going to listen to a lot of that feedback, because it's feedback that myself and other CCs have been giving in the background for quite some time, and they just plow ahead with these things anyway. They're, of course, under no obligation to actually listen to us. I understand that. I hold no delusions that I have this incredible knowledge of everything going on in the game and all the potential scenarios that Wargaming has to juggle, the financial side even, and people's jobs, how they are affected. We don't want crunch in our games, obviously, right? So I don't understand that whole side of it, but just from playing the game and looking at the direction here, this isn't good, and I've been given that feedback. It's just sad to see them push through with it anyway. But I'm going to end it there before I continue to rant again and again and again. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.